US stocks ended last week in positive territory as investors took in signals from the Federal Reserve, and Trump spoke of some flexibility when it comes to a reciprocal tariff plan set for April 2nd. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq, both of which entered correction territory in a downbeat kickoff to 2025, have now snapped 4-week losing streaks. On tariffs, analysts report that international car makers are rushing to ship vehicles and core components to the US ahead of the next round of higher duties. In response to requests, more than usual car-carrying vessels have been dispatched to Asia and Europe amid plans to carry thousands more vehicles to the US. And Transparency International has written against corruption in a letter to the UN climate change body UNFCCC and the Brazilian COP30 Presidency. Hello, welcome to Global Business Insights, where we analyze the main business stories. Tesla shares have been plunging since mid-December after an all-time high fueled by optimism from the Republican election victory. All that has vanished as the stock retreated more than 50% since its December record. But the deep buying opportunity has opened the floodgates for a group of dedicated investors who strongly believe in the future of the company and Elon Musk's abilities. Johnson & Johnson is raising U.S. investments by 25% to more than $55 billion over the next 4 years as it plans 4 new plants, one of which would be set up in Wilson, North Carolina, where it officially broke ground recently. The threat of higher drug import duties is moving many companies to expand their domestic manufacturing operations. They are calling it an end of fiscal conservatism as Germany's upper house of parliament on Friday approved plans for a 500 billion euro fund to spend on infrastructure, and it eases strict borrowing rules to allow higher spending on defense. Meanwhile, in the UK, it could be political suicide for the Labour Party as it is reported to be mulling plans to cut benefits to vulnerable groups. Tougher eligibility for personal independence payments and incapacity benefits implies people who would have received £15,000 a year, excluding housing support, will instead receive about £5,400, a drop of 64%. Chancellor Reeves also said over the weekend, "I'm confident that we can reduce civil service numbers by 10,000. Reeves said during COVID there were big increases in the number of people who were working in the civil service. That was the right thing to do then, but it's not right anymore, and we just can't keep those numbers." This is as she orders a £2 billion Whitehall efficiency drive to help fill a hole in the public finances. Maybe they could borrow Elon Musk for a few months to help out. US investors and TikTok's owner, ByteDance, are working with software giant Oracle to assure the US administration that the viral video app is free of Chinese control. Under the plan, backers of ByteDance, including General Atlantic, will seek to acquire additional stakes in a spun-off TikTok US business. It's also reported that Oracle could also take a small holding in the business and secure the US app's data. Kenya's annual earnings from goods sold to key African countries fell for the first time in 6 years due to the competitiveness of the manufacturing sector in the continent and the strength of the Kenyan shilling. Traders earned 421.3 billion shillings in 2024 from 429.7 billion shillings, breaking a trend of sustained growth since 2019. Barely a week after an explosion rocked the Trans-Niger pipeline in Bodo-Gokana local government area of Rivers State, Nigeria, there was another explosion confirmed yesterday at the Soku oil facility in Akukutoru local government area. And in Nigeria, analysts are concerned that the economic consequences of a state of emergency declared in oil-producing Rivers State could mean a heavy toll on the nation's economy. The risk of another shutdown of vital oil production facilities, renewed pipeline sabotage, illegal oil bunkering, and militant activities could send the economy nosediving at a time when the economy is seeing a fragile recovery. Heightened concerns about security for investors in the region comes also at a cost that weighs on returns. The president had explained that the declaration was needed to restore stability and peace to the state, and he could not just fold his hands as the state degenerates further into an uncontrollable situation. Section 305 of Nigeria's 1999 constitution allows the president to intervene in cases of severe crisis, security threats, or governance failures under specific circumstances such as war or imminent danger of war, breakdown of public order and safety, natural disasters, or other public dangers. The implications include suspension of normal governance, restriction of normal rights such as freedom of movement, deployment of military and paramilitary forces to maintain law and order, businesses and economic activities disruptions, and negative perceptions and heightened public distrust and apathetic or even turned off investors. In the absence of investment and confidence, there is little or no innovation, only a steady stagnation. One, without being the expert on security, hopes we understand the full implications of these types of interventions and how they drain societies of hope. The shorter the period of this state of emergency, surely the better it has to be, as a combination of lower oil prices, inertia and lifting of oil production volumes are already headwinds to revival. Also at a time when Nigerians are seeking relief from pains associated with high inflation and borrowing costs. This development, which could further lead to tighter fiscal purse with lower oil revenues, could not have chosen a worse timing. Transparency International sent an open letter signed by over 250 groups, organizations, and influential bodies and individuals last week to the UN climate change body UNFCCC and the Brazilian COP30 Presidency. The letter conveyed a broad coalition of global and national actors seeking urgent reforms to confront the corrupt influence of fossil fuel interests and other high-polluting industries on global climate negotiations. The letter warns that high-polluting actors are obstructing real solutions and ambitious action, prioritizing their own agendas over the urgent need for change. The letter asks for key measures to be implemented. 1. A conflict of interest policy to exclude fossil fuel and polluting industry lobbyists from state delegations. 2. Transparency standards to ensure full public disclosure of all affiliations by COP participants and lobbyists. Revised host country agreements and COP presidency standards to end partnerships with polluting industries at COP30 and beyond. And then a reformed COP presidency selection process to ensure future hosts demonstrate real progress on climate action and human rights. The advocates of this move say there are examples already existing in the UN system, such as the World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, which excludes participation from the tobacco industry. And such examples justify excluding the fossil fuel industry and its lobbyists from climate discussions. Transparency International is presenting the need for improved climate governance, ensuring it is transparent, accountable, and free from corrupt influences, arguing that the next COP30 UN climate change conference in Brazil is a unique opportunity to reset global climate diplomacy and build a future where transparency, accountability, and integrity are at the heart of decision making for climate action. Needless to say, the fossil fuel lobby headed by oil producers and their organizations have always insisted that they must be carried along and their analytics cannot be disregarded to avoid chaos in markets that can only lead to shocks. Other major interests like the new US administration just want cheap energy today, which means using all energy sources available in a way that minimizes costs to citizens and boosts their narrow economic interests. Poorer Africa and third world producers of energy with vast gaps in access to energy compared to Western developers only see a widening disadvantage without the needed technology transfer and major financial aid. Many African economies like Nigeria just beginning to celebrate not having to import refined petrol will definitely balk at being told now to import electric batteries. So who wants faster climate action, perhaps apart from a wealthier Europe and the Chinese, who produce, we understand, most of the electric batteries and solar panels? All sides of the debate have to evolve the optimum win-win trajectory to a safer and prosperous planet, where none are left behind, otherwise it becomes academic. Transparency and governance over subsidies and aid for climate actions have to also be in place. This cannot be politicized. Still, Transparency International does have a point in that the heavy PR wallets of fossil fuel lobbyists should not be allowed to distort the narrative. Canada's Prime Minister, former Bank of England Governor Mark Carney, has called for a snap election as he moves to dissolve Parliament, saying he needs a strong mandate to deal with the threat posed by the United States. His party, the governing Liberals, are expected to win the vote on the 28th of April. Chinese top officials are reassuring foreign corporate chiefs of the country's business potential in meetings with companies including Apple, Pfizer, MasterCard, and others. Chinese Prime Minister Li Qiang also told foreign business leaders at the China Development Forum on Sunday that China's philosophy, unlike America's, was to open up markets and share their resources more. He added that China was bracing for unexpected shocks from the intensifying trade war with America. Oil prices were lower as investors assessed the outlook for ceasefire talks aimed at ending the Russia-Ukraine war, which could lead to more supply of oil to global markets. Brent just under $72 a barrel in early morning trade. China Petroleum and Chemical Corporation, Sinopec, reported a 16.8% decline in 2024 net profit. This was due to lower crude oil prices and acceleration of the new energy vehicle industry. Just in, we got Germany and Eurozone Purchasing Managers Index, the first flash data for March. German business activity rose at the quickest rate for 10 months in March, amid a first increase in manufacturing production for almost 2 years. The composite PMI output index came in at 50.9 in March, up from 50.4 in February, and its highest since May last year. Germany's manufacturing PMI showed improvement to 48.3 in March compared to 47.7 expected, while services PMI for the German economy dropped to 50.2 in March, lower than 51.4 expected. Eurozone companies brought an end to a period of job shedding stretching back to August 2024. Business activity in the Eurozone increased for the third consecutive month in March. Composite PMI output index was higher at 50.4, better than February. Eurozone services PMI, however, slipped to 50.4, lower than February's 50.6, while the flash manufacturing PMI output was at 50.7 as manufacturing returns to growth, also a 34-month high, better than 48.9 in February. Asia-Pacific markets were mostly lower amid lingering uncertainty, and after China's Premier Li Qiang cautioned on a rising instability and called for countries to open up markets and enterprises. Looking ahead for the week, in the US, we will get a reading of the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, that's the Personal Consumption Expenditure Index, PCEI. We also get updates on PMI activity in the manufacturing and services sector, consumer confidence, and a final reading of US fourth quarter GDP. Well, that's all on this episode of Global Business Insights. Thanks for watching. This is Bode Oshosami.